Okay, we're now on agenda item 16. This is a presentation from the Diocese of Llandaff. There isn't a background note to this. The diocese will explain all that's going on. The Bishop of Llandaff is going to introduce, and Matt Batten, who's the Director of Communications and Engagement in the Diocese of Llandaff, is also going to speak. You will remember that you gave permission for him to speak at the beginning of the session yesterday. So Bishop June, I hand over to you.
Thank you, June Osborne, Bishop of Llandaff, Your Grace, Mr. Chairman, and fellow members of governing body. I'm joined by all the representatives of Llandaff and a number of colleagues who you'll see in a moment on screen in presenting to you the opportunities, hopes and missional intentions of our diocese. We want to give you a flavour of our strategic vision, where faith matters. And at the end of the presentation, there'll be an opportunity, a short opportunity for some questions. So if I can ask you to put any questions that you have in the chat room. The Archdeacon of Llandaff, on her last day in governing body, will either answer them herself or she will divert them to another Llandaff representative as she sees fit. The Diocese of Llandaff is the most diverse and densely populated of our 6 dioceses. As most of you know, it largely comprises Cardiff with many of our national institutions, the Vale of Glamorgan and the valleys, Cunnan, Rhondda, Neath and other post-industrial communities. 130 clergy, 200 church buildings, 10,257 on our electoral rolls. And a bishop arriving in her diocese is bound to ask, what does good look like for this diocese? And what do we want to achieve together? And so it was that I explored Llandaff's character and ambitions in the early days of my ministry here. After a couple of years of consultations and conversations, we'd resolved a plan which we called Where Faith Matters, recognising that faith was ceasing to matter for the majority of the communities we serve. South Wales has amongst the highest rates of people claiming to have no religion in the whole of the UK and Western Europe. And for the Diocese of Llandaff, Where Faith Matters involves 3 things: telling a joyful story. In other words, not talking ourselves into decline, but seeing how God really is at work for us. Building the kingdom of God, focusing on God's activity in our communities and not just life inside church. Later on, you'll hear Jane Hutt, the Senedd member, and Mike Plout, who's been chair of the CBI in Wales, talking about just that from their own perspectives. Both are members of our congregations. And growing our capacity for good. The Church in Wales is the largest voluntary organisation in Wales. And so there's a real question about how we use our reach and our resilience to make more impact. Now that last point is absolutely crucial because in Llandaff we were determined not just to write a strategic plan, but to implement it. If you're interested, you can read the whole plan on our website or by signing up for our weekly e-newsletter, Llandaff Matters. But let me give you 3 headline ambitions, which we're going to illustrate for you just now. The first one is a greater engagement to the young. The second is confident lay Christians and more lay leadership in our diocese. And the third is about community engagement, that outreach is our way of being. Now, alongside the creation of that strategic plan, we put in place a new senior team, half clergy, half laity. And Mike Lawley will talk in a moment about that and how we have been tying finance and strategic priorities together. We believe in team working, in trust, in constructive dissent, because the issues we face are complex, and so we need to hear from everyone what they really think. And we believe in continuous improvement, which means being allowed to be innovative, to take risks, to make mistakes. So far, so good. And then the pandemic hit. And the senior team rose to the challenge and recognized that we needed a bold response to this unavoidable change. Last autumn, I and the senior team met with 700 members of PCCs in Zoom calls. And I want to just now show you the introduction to those engagements. When COVID hit, we had to change the pace of our implementation plan, and especially the structure within which we were operating. We already had 11 multi-parish rectorial benefices, but to make the hard and effective decisions that were required of us, we set a new timetable for a whole-scale move to 29 ministry areas. We learned, especially from the Diocese of Bangor, St David's and St Asaph, who'd all gone before us on this road. And this is where we are now. There's a new time frame of the 1st of January 2022 for every ministry area to be in existence. We've raised up the lay leadership necessary. There is a college of lay chairs who are already meeting regularly. We have all of our ministry area leaders in place, and they're absolutely terrific. And we have ministry area transition teams, which are developing the futures of each individual ministry area. So you can see that Llandaff is in a time of rapid change. The diocese sets the legalities, the legal framework. It pays for the financial software. It provides the training and determines the culture. But the ministry areas themselves work out their own ambitions and operational methods. And as they do that, I ask them to take seriously 4 important elements. First of all, what are their outreach priorities? Secondly, how do they create truly collaborative teams? Thirdly, what does it mean for them to be a learning hub? We're rethinking how we teach people the Christian faith and how we coordinate that with our partners like St Batten. And fourthly, where might they include a different offer of church to the young? You'll see in a moment some pioneering work being done in the diocese by the Church Army and citizen church. But our aspiration is that every single ministry area has to include a new offer of church to young people, led by young people. And so here, my friends, is a taste of where faith matters and the voices of the Diocese of Llandaff.
So as a church, of course, we worship God every Sunday in church, but then at the end of the service, the last words are, go in peace to love and serve the Lord. We seek to go out into the community, into the world, put our faith into practice. And this is an important way that we can do that, by helping people who are in need, people who are on their own, by bringing to them the love of God and showing them that they're not alone, showing them that there is a community around them that cares for them.
I've always been to the church and I felt I was missing something in my life. There was something I need to fulfill. And I feel, when I've done, we've gone out and given community, I really feel so humble that I've been there with these people that are so lonely and so in need. And I just wish we could spread ourselves further.
That's the natural thing for the church to want to do, to try and serve the community that it's set in, to try and do good things for the community, and to try and bring the community together and bring some joy and love into the community which is set to serve.
Well, I've been part of the congregation in St Winifred's Church for probably 30 years, and it's a wonderful congregation. Also, ever since I've been here, there's always been something to do and something to volunteer for as part and parcel of being in the church and showing Christ's love to the community and also to the people within the congregation.
I got involved because I was asked by a friend, would I like to go to Company at Christmas, because I haven't got any family that live close to me. I'm not judged when I go to Company at Christmas, and I know that I have a problem with my eating because I have multiple sclerosis. I meet people that have been to Company at Christmas in St Fagans in previous years, and we just have a good time, good meal, entertainment, and Father Christmas.
Gelwais ni dyfyd y deyrnas, cynorthwya ni I adrodd stori lawen ac I adeiladu dy ddeuoni yn ein byd, drwy Iesu Grist ein harglwydd. Amen.
Rejoice, heavenly powers, sing choirs of angels, exalt all creation around God's throne, sound the trumpet of salvation. Jesus Christ our King is risen.
You pulled me from the ashes, you have broken every curse. Blessed Redeemer, you have set this captive free. Lord, I can't help but see it. Faithful you are, faithful forever you will be. Faithful you are.
In our breakout group yesterday, Ian Lloyd, the head of St Tylo's schools, said of the road ahead of us that we have to take children from the extreme pain of last year to a place of fruitfulness. Now, if children are to have everything we hope for them, it has to include spiritual fruitfulness, the invitation to walk with Jesus. And one of our serious intentions in Llandaff is to proclaim that young faith matters. Again, listen, here's my invitation for you to listen to those who are beginning to implement this goal, starting with Steve Locke, our senior engagement worker, and then Matt Batten, our Director of Communication and Engagement, is going to take up the diocesan story.
And through the generosity of the Evangelism Fund, the Young Faith Matters team is growing. Along with the education team, we're inspiring children and young people to experience God in lots of innovative ways. These are some of the stories.
We love the online children's club. Even though we can't go to church, we can still see our friends and do lots of fun activities. We love the arts and crafts, to talk about Bible stories, singing songs and to pray all together. It's really fun. We love it.
We took part in the Tithe Advent project with other schools across the diocese. We learnt loads about people seeking sanctuary and how we can welcome people to our school.
I'm Andy Settle, and I'm the lead pioneer for the local Centre of Mission that's working in partnership with the Church in Wales. And there we have done things like Messy Church, Connected and Lounge and so on, working in particular with youth and children, but doing also a lot of intergenerational work. With that in mind, we're very excited now that we are to move across the 29 ministry areas, working closely with a team from the diocese made up of the engagement workers and the mission enablers, working in schools, working in colleges and engaging with young people generally.
Hey everyone, my name is Ryan. I'm the lead pastor of Citizen Church, a new church for Cardiff. Back in 2019, the Bishop of Llandaff invited my wife Ellie and I and our team to come and plant a city centre resource church right in the heart of Cardiff. There's 3.2 million people in Wales, but there was a BBC study that shows only 29,000 people go to church. And when we were invited, we were asked to be a church for the 99% plus of people that don't currently go to church in Cardiff, in Wales and beyond. We're part of a network of churches called the HTB Network, and as a network we have a vision to play our part in the re-evangelisation of the nations, the revitalisation of the church and the transformation of society. And for us as a church, that is our vision. But we also have a mission, and our mission is to break, to breach, to bring and to build. We want to break the stereotypes of church. We want to breach loneliness and bring people home, and we want to build God's kingdom. So why not join us? You could check us out on our website, which will come up after this video, or you can hit us up on Instagram. Just drop us a DM and we'll get back to you. We'd love to have you involved. Come, get involved in what we're doing. There's already loads to come and get involved in.
Hi everyone, so I'm up next. I'm going to be talking to you about communication and outreach in the Diocese of Llandaff. My name is Matt Batten, for those of you who don't know me, long-time viewer of governing body, first-time presenter. Many thanks for voting to allow me to attend and speak, otherwise this would be a very short session and all about Bishop June. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our vision for communication and engagement. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. I talk a lot about work, so that's a real personal thing for me to talk about work. It's a bit of a vocation as well. Follow me on there and you'll find out a lot more about what we do here. A lot has changed in the 2 years that I've been in the diocese. My background is in communication, my background is in engagement, my background is also in theology. But a lot has changed in the last 2 years in the way that we have developed our communication strategy alongside the vision. But the one thing that hasn't changed is the message. The message remains the same, and our message, we're asked to proclaim the gospel. We're asked to make fishers of people. That is the message, and that will always be at the heart of our vision. It will always be at the heart of our communication strategy. The only thing that has changed is that there are more opportunities now to share the good news of Christ. At the Diocese of Llandaff, we make use of every opportunity to share a joyful story of God's transformative love. That's what we're here to do through every tweet, through every Facebook message, through every YouTube video, every live stream, every newsletter, whether that's digital or whether that's print. And through every website update, everything has a strategic intent, and that is linked to our vision. We want to be telling our joyful story, and we want to be growing the kingdom of God, and we want to be building our capacity for good. But everything we do and everything we communicate is also infused with the gospel message. We embrace traditional media. When I first started, and this is similar to pretty much every church organization before COVID, print was king. Everything was printed and everything was distributed as print. There is a growing audience of people who are online that the church has not caught up with yet. All I did in the first year of my time in the Diocese of Llandaff was to bring digital up to the same level as traditional media. But what we saw through doing that was that we are growing relationships, because online is a form of ministry. Communication is a form of ministry. And by working with all departments across the diocese, by working with our ministry team, by working with our Young Faith Matters team, who are doing absolutely outstanding work with young people, we are able to minister to a much bigger audience by taking part in all the opportunities. God has given us more tools to share his story of transformative love, and we are making every opportunity that we can to do that. We, as I say, we seize these opportunities. It's a message that we share of life-giving message of hope and love. And we measure the impact that we have. We measure whether our messages are reaching our audience that we need to reach. We use statistics to make sure that our videos are having the impact that we have, because we know the stories in the diocese, the stories of people who have been inspired by faith, the stories of people who are living their life every day through the lessons that they've learned through going to church and through reading the Bible, are stories that inspire people. We all know who the greatest storyteller is, and obviously that's J.K. Rowling. Actually, no, it's not. Archbishop, don't worry, you haven't missed anything. It is definitely Jesus. Jesus is still the greatest storyteller, and we still use we take our mandate from Jesus in terms of sharing our story. Stories are what bring people close to the message. Stories are what inspire. Everything that we share is someone else's story. We are sharing people, as you've seen in the previous vision video, we're sharing stories of clergy who are helping people every day. We are sharing stories of volunteers who are humbled by the opportunities they have to serve their community, and we're sharing the stories of people whose lives have been transformed because of the church community, because of being part of a church community. Everything we communicate is an opportunity to change people's lives. We're here, the communications team are here to equip clergy and our volunteers with the knowledge, the skills and the information to do what they do well. We're here to inspire people. We're here to inspire family and friends, because I think we can all agree that evangelism happens in relationships, and using social media correctly, using the digital space to grow relationships is exactly what we do in the Diocese of Llandaff. We are present on social media, having conversations with people. What we've noticed, and if there's only one thing you remember from anything I say today, it's we basically share other people's stories on our social media platform, but they are inspiring stories that are then shared by clergy on their parish websites or newsletters as well. But what we're noticing is friends and families of people who go to church are sharing that message as well. So we are reaching a much wider audience by carefully using the channels that are out there to build a wider audience through relationships. People are when you share something about a community activity in church and you share it with your friends, they're immediately interested because they trust you. So social media and the digital space is about relationships, and digital and communication, when done well, is about ministry. And that's what we do at Diocese of Llandaff. That is essentially our communication strategy. Outreach is a very exciting part of what we do. It's the bread and butter of the church, as you know. But what we've got now is an opportunity to grow our outreach portfolio, to grow how we help our ministry areas deliver outreach programs. We are currently about to recruit a senior outreach worker who will be devising our outreach strategy to help ministry areas and local communities bounce back from the impact of COVID. It is an important part of our strategy, and you're going to see a video or two later on that talks about how outreach and how the church is just also integral to the future of Wales as well. We couldn't do any of this if we didn't have the right culture in the Diocese of Llandaff. Now, Bishop June has touched upon that earlier on. Now, our culture here is a culture where we are allowed to innovate. This isn't just a buzzword. We are allowed to try things differently. We have a culture of trust where we are able to do the job that we've been employed to do and to do it well. But we also, most importantly, have the freedom to experiment, and we have the freedom then to fail and to fail well, because not everything that we do is going to work, but we are bold in our approach to our vision. We believe in it so much that we are willing to take risks along the way. And that comes from the senior leadership team setting that template for clergy to have a go at live streaming a year ago when no one actually knew whether they could do it. And you know what? 12 months later, amazing. 12 months later, Stephen Kirk is the Zoom master. Who would have thought that was going to happen? I certainly didn't when I started. No offense, Stephen. But I'm taking all my tips on presenting from you at the moment. You know, we're seeing such wonderful transformation. Yes, COVID forced us to change, but the culture here allows us to, and that's what I think we're most proud of. I'm going to hand over to Mike Lawley, however, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the culture of leadership in the Diocese of Llandaff.
I've chaired the Llandaff DBF for almost 4 years, and it's been an eventful and rewarding time. Bishop June has reshaped the Bishop's team into a diverse and balanced senior leadership team, comprising the senior clerics and lay officers of the diocese, and I'm privileged to be part of the SLT in my capacity as DBF chair. The SLT has now developed into a very strong team of different talents and personalities, where everybody has a voice, and constructive challenge and open debate are part of the normal process to reach well-rounded outcomes, and then get on to implement them. One of my aims has been for the DBF to become more effective and efficient in the way it works, based on a strong sense of governance. The DBF has updated itself with new articles of association, overhauled its committee structures and ways of working, and added talented co-optees to secure the all-round skills that we require. The diocesan budget and staff structures have all been reshaped to focus on delivery of the diocesan vision, which was adopted just over 2 years ago. These refreshed structures and organisational changes at the centre of the diocese have in turn been very helpful in completing the move to ministry areas, which stepped up a gear in the middle of last year. It's a huge help in getting sign-on from ministry areas to the benefits of reorganising and becoming fit for the 21st century, when you can say that we have already achieved these changes at DBF and SLT level. Finally, I'm very pleased by the key roles being given to lay people, with lay chairs being put in place in each ministry area, and encouragement being given by Bishop June and the SLT to lay people coming forward to participate in lead roles in the diocese. The high quality of people who have now come forward will be of real help in continuing the drive to deliver the diocesan vision and ultimately produce what the DBF and the SLT want, which is a strong diocese with a resilient platform, able to go joyfully about its ministry and mission work.
So that's a little bit about the culture here. And I should have also said that part of our comm strategy is inclusion as well, which is why we subtitle our videos. We subtitle, where our aim this year is to subtitle 80% of our videos. It's something that we're very passionate about, and making sure communication is accessible to as many people as possible. But what of the future then? Well, the future of the Diocese of Llandaff is also tied up in the future of the Church in Wales. We're all working towards the same goal. Our vision is very much our sort of like South Wales vision of growing the kingdom of God here in South Wales. But also we are very much part of what's going on in Wales and the decisions that are being made about COVID recovery across Wales. And to tell you a little bit more about this, as Bishop June mentioned, we have two very senior leaders in Wales who also worship in our churches. We're going to talk to you about what the future of the church in Wales looks like to them.
Well, this is such an important time. We've had such a nightmare of a year with the pandemic, but what's happened, what's come forward, and particularly from the Church in Wales, is a real coming together, a sharing of experience, of reaching out with compassion and hope for those who perhaps have been really isolated, because it is about your place, our place in Wales, our place in the community. And I'll never forget when the church called together with the residents in the Penally camp, which fortunately has now closed, and the men who were resident there have come to live in Cardiff, Newport, Swansea, and in living in the community. And immediately the churches got involved and got in touch. But they were there, the chaplains, the imam, everyone working together. When there is an issue, a crisis of that kind, when we're supporting asylum seekers, because we are a nation of sanctuary, that's what we want to be. Wales is a diverse nation, it's a caring nation, and the Church of Wales must be at the heart of that.
I'm a businessman, and it's become very apparent to me that a lot of the challenges from COVID are actually in front of us rather than behind us. We're going to have to rebuild our society, rebuild our economy. It's going to be challenging, but it's also going to be exciting. The church really has a role to play going forward, and the church in Wales is ideally placed to make a difference. And my challenge today is really to say, can we release our laity? Can we actually make a difference on the ground? Can we actually make a difference in a wider society? Can we make a difference in the economy? Can we create jobs? Can we encourage people to actually go into politics, whatever the party? But going forward, we can't sit on the sidelines. We as Christians have got to get involved. We may not all share a common vision, but we've all got to offer hope and encouragement. So I would just love to see a way of the Church in Wales playing its part and releasing its laity to make a real difference going forward.
Okay, thank you everyone, and I do hope you're popping some questions in the chat, because I'd love to hear your feedback. I'm going to hand over to Bishop June for some final thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. Well, our time is almost up, and I need to hand over myself to Archdeacon Peggy. I hope that you will send some questions her way or comments, but just one last thought from me. Last year was a year of pilgrimage for the Llandaff Diocese. We'd planned it carefully, but just about everything that we had intended had to be cancelled. But in preparing for that year and what God has in store for the Diocese of Llandaff, the clergy had all gone on pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela. Now, some said it was a rather lavish choice for a clergy school. And when asked, I justified it by saying that I wanted us to be together in a place where prayer had long been valid. The sense that we gained whilst in Santiago, the sense of us being one, of us being companions on a road unfamiliar to all of us, those who break bread together on a pilgrim journey, that is still with us and has stood us in good stead. For 2020 was still a year of pilgrimage for us. It was just one where God asked different things than we'd anticipated. And we found ourselves absolutely on an untrodden road. He was teaching us how to tell a joyful story, to grow his kingdom, and to build our capacity for good. Archdeacon Peggy.
Well, I'm not. I think Arch, while she's probably getting ready, or they're trying to. Oh, there we are. I can see you now, Peggy. I just saw some comments. I was going to read them, but you carry on.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Well, there was only one comment. By the time we came to the end of the presentation, there was only one comment, which was a very nice one. Thank you, from Moniz, and from Philip Davis. Yes, again, a very nice affirming comment. Thank you very much. I'd like to encourage anybody who to ask questions, because we're ready to field them. But as I was watching the presentation myself and thinking how this must seem to other people in governing body, the question that came to my mind was, people will be asking themselves, how on earth has Llandaff managed to do this? Because it's a very different sort of a picture of Llandaff Diocese from the one that we've been used to presenting to governing body and to the rest of the church in Wales. And my answer to that question was, well, actually, it's because we've done it as a whole. We've done it together. That's the biggest culture change in the diocese that we've seen over the last few years. We had said previously, when we were talking about the Harris report and collaborative ministry and all these developments that we share, we had talked about doing it from the bottom up, making sure that we brought people with us. But a change of pace in recent years has meant that actually it's doing it together, so that at every level of the diocese, change has come in the culture and in the way in which we relate to one another. And I think that is what has given us the momentum to be able to carry it through. And those who are in our ministry areas and parishes who are doubtful and uncertain, and there are still plenty who are, but actually they have a sense now that they are part of something bigger. The rest of us are going ahead, and the rest of us are finding all the positive and good things about it. And that is helping to bring people on board who otherwise might have lost their nerve a bit. So I think that's been the change. Some more detail, Susan's asking, some more detail how the College of Lay Chairs operates. I'm wondering if we've got a lay chair here in the group. Don't know that we have. Bishop June, would you like to say a bit about that? Because the College of Lay Chairs was very much part of your vision.
Yeah, we don't only have, thank you, Peggy, we don't only have a College of Lay Chairs, we talk about a College of Ministry Area Leaders and indeed a College of Treasurers. And the reason why we've used that language is because we need to make impact in areas where it's not just about where the decisions get made, but in the sharing, just what you've said, Peggy, about the sharing of wisdom and insight across the diocese. And we deliberately, we talked a lot to the other dioceses about how they'd done ministry areas, and we deliberately appointed lay chairs who had experience of leadership and governance. And so they meet in order to identify for us where the work needs to get done. But far more importantly, they encourage each other. They problem solve together. And of course, what we have in our lay chairs are people who have done all of this in their secular employment quite often, and now want to do the same for the church's life. And I think it's making already, and we're very early days, it's making a terrific change to have a confident lay strategic voice in each of the ministry areas, who then brings those conversations into the diocesan forum.
Thank you very much. I think we've probably all seen the chat that's been going up and the wonderful comments and supportive comments that people have made, and the enthusiasm that has been engaged with the presentation. So unless anyone has an urgent and specific question, I'm inclined now to draw this section to a close, so that we can get on. Oh, I understand that Sarah Rogers tells me that only the panelists have it, but I can assure you only the panelists have the chat. I can assure you there've been a lot of very enthusiastic comments that have been made during the course of the presentation, and I'm grateful to everyone. So thank you very much, Bishop June. Thank you, Matt Batten. Thank you, Peggy. Oh, Peggy, you want a final comment?
Well, I'm just seeing that there has been one specific question just while you were speaking. May we take one more question?
Briefly then, yes.
From Hannah Birch, who just makes the point that with children and young people, how can we be sure that they don't get split off from the rest of the church if we're focusing on alternative expressions? That seems a very apt question. If we're going out to meet young people in different places in alternative ways, how do we make sure that they don't become an alternative church split off from the rest of us? And I wonder if, I'm thinking perhaps Peter Lewis might be able to answer that, if Peter is online. Peter's particularly concerned with vocations and
unless we could get in fairly quickly, we probably do need to move on.
Or perhaps Matt.
Yeah, I'm all right.
A brief comment then, Peter?
Yeah, certainly. So we have got a lot of opportunities at the moment for connecting to new groups of people. And it is always going to be a dilemma, as Hannah was saying, about creating something which is distinct. But we are at a time when we need to do things which relate particularly to certain groups of people. So I feel really confident that with a new team in the Young People's Matter coming along as resources to all kinds of different initiatives which are going, that people will feel part of the diocese, part of the church in Wales, but more important, they're going to feel part of the Christian faith. And that's what we're really thinking about. So it is a dilemma, but I think we just have to live with it and respond. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. That's really good. I will now draw this to a close. So thank you for all those who have participated, and I'm very grateful to you.